Hmm. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, sorry, guys. So, the reason why I have this is because since Jason Voorhees is not in the very first movie, I have to look up to see if this movie actually counts as a classic slasher horror movie. And I can't find it. Ah, here it is. According to the log under the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if the rest of the family is just as evil and crazy as the iconic killer is, then they're allowed to have their very own screen time. And since slasher horror movies are famous for having long-running franchises, it is passable for family members to have their own standalone movie. Okay, there you go. So, Friday the 13th is technically a slasher horror movie classic. So, Friday the 13th began in 1980, and with slasher horror movies on the rise, especially after the success of Halloween, this this franchise decided to, or at least this director decided to put his name in this ring. Now, this comes as a little bit of a problem because slasher horror movies, even though they were gaining in popularity, there are some elements to it where modern audiences were not ready for it. Like, for example, in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the movie got a whole lot of backlash for its graphic violence. And you can kind of notice that in the movie Halloween. Even though it is a slasher horror movie, it still kills teenagers and it still has the horror elements. There's not any gore in the movie. There's no blood. There's no, body parts all over the place. It plays it a little bit too safe. But either way, it was the movie that boosted the slasher horror movie genre, and this director decided I don't want to just to make a remake of Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I want to do something new. So he basically put his foot down and said, "To heck with it. This movie's going to have gore. You are going to see blood, you're going to see guts, and it's going to be awesome." And I think it's cool that he decided to take that risk. Now, another thing I got to say, oh, it was just at the top of my head. What was it? Oh yeah, it's this. So, I think classic slasher horror movies are a whole lot better when they're independent films, like indie films. Like, for example, Texas Chainsaw was an indie film. Halloween was kind of an indie film, but it still had a Hollywood budget to it. No, wait, I think it really was an indie film. This movie as well is an indie film. You could tell that they don't have $1 million in their bank account. They decided to put a movie together and hope for the best. And that's where you kind of find the gold when it comes to Friday the 13th. It doesn't look expensive. It doesn't look like it has high-paid actors in there. We're just in it to see the horror, and that's really what Friday the 13th is famous for. Mhm. Granted, a lot of producers in Hollywood or a lot of the higher ups, and when it comes to the movie industry, were not big fans of Friday the 13th. If you look at its award list, it was nominated for Worst Picture. However, according to its box office results, audiences loved it. So that's when the famous Friday the 13th franchise finally came into play. Now, I did mention that Jason Voorhees is not in this movie. Granted, he is in this movie briefly and he's mentioned a lot of times, but it's another member of his family that is doing all the messy stuff. And I'm not going to tell you who that is because I want you to watch the movie. Anyway, there are a couple of flaws when it comes to this movie, and that is the writing and that is the acting. The acting is really not that good. I can't even name a lot of people that is in this movie except for one person, and that was Kevin Bacon before Kevin Bacon finally got his spot in Footloose. But everyone else, I don't even know who any of these people are. As well as the writing. The writing is just not that good. I mean, you don't really care about these characters. They say things, but you're not really listening. All you're really waiting for is how much is this movie gonna scare me? How much is this movie gonna give me nightmares? And when the horror elements finally come into this movie, they really do show. I mean, the build up to these horror moments are really good because it's like they decided to use a handheld camera and stand in the middle of the forest, hiding behind trees, watching them. It feels like a stalker is watching them, and that just brings that level of fear inside of you. Granted, in my opinion, I like it a whole lot better. I like it a whole lot better when I'm watching the victim do their own thing, not knowing that they're being watched, and you could possibly see their face in the background, or even just a shadow. You know that the killer is there. And in this movie, there was a golden opportunity to do that. One of the characters is making themselves coffee, just walking back and forth, just one shot in this, and there's a window in the background. If I were a horror movie director, even if it made no sense, I would have had like a face or something right there as she passes the window, just for people to go back to the movie and say, "Whoa, I did not see that before." I guess they didn't have the idea come to mind. But another thing that this movie does bring out, and that is the gore. Granted, there are some really graphic scenes in this movie. One of them was the arrow under the bed. That was shocking to watch. But that's where the movie really does shine. And it's not just, things being graphic or just basic teens dying. There are several moments in this movie where they have other horror elements to it, like the kid calling out in the darkness, or who the heck is driving that Jeep around. It has a lot of stuff to it. Granted, I could probably talk about this movie in many different ways, but I guess it is how it is. So I gotta say, Friday the 13th, in my mind, is most definitely a classic slasher horror movie. In my mind, I still think the movie Halloween is a whole lot better, but that's just my opinion. But I'm not going to downgrade Friday the 13th just because I like one movie better. So Friday the 13th, the first one, is most definitely legendary. So guys, Friday the 13th, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Also, if you want me to talk more about the slasher horror movie franchises, just comment them down below. Also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you in the next video.